The space station called Harmony's Edge floated like a giant silver wheel among the stars. Inside its long hallways, creatures from 100 different worlds walked together. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some looked like giant insects. And among all these strange beings walked a small human girl named Emma Park. Emma was 7 years old. She had dark hair that her father always tied in 2 braids, and she wore a bright yellow dress that her grandmother had made for her back on Earth. In her arms, she carried a stuffed animal. It was a honey badger with black and white fur, and she called him Sergeant Rascal. Her mother had given him to her 3 years ago, before her mother went away forever. Emma's father was a very important man. His name was David Park, and he was an ambassador. His job was to talk to aliens and help humans and other species become friends. Today, he was in a big meeting with leaders from many worlds. Emma was supposed to stay in their quarters and watch cartoons, but she had gotten bored. So she wandered into the hallway with Sergeant Rascal, looking at all the strange creatures passing by. A tall being that looked like a walking tree smiled down at her. A small creature with 6 legs and purple fur waved at her. Emma waved back. She liked this place. Everyone here seemed nice, but not everyone in the galaxy was nice. Far away, hidden behind a small moon, 5 ships waited in the darkness. These ships belonged to the Velthari, a species that looked like giant insects standing on 2 legs. They had hard shells covering their bodies, sharp claws on their hands, and eyes that saw everything. The Velthari were slavers. They traveled across space, stealing people and selling them as workers. They believed that soft-skinned creatures were weak and existed only to serve the strong. The leader of these ships was named High Claw Thresk. He stood on the bridge of his vessel, the Consumption, watching the space station through his many eyes. His mandibles clicked together with excitement. "Today we take many prizes," he said to his crew. "The station's defenses are weak. Their guards are lazy. We strike fast, take the young ones, and leave before anyone can stop us." His crew clicked their approval. Young ones were valuable. Young ones could be trained. Young ones fetched high prices in the slave markets of the Outer Rim. The attack came without warning. Emma was looking at a painting on the wall when the first explosion shook the station. She fell to the floor, and Sergeant Rascal flew from her hands. Alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. People started running and shouting in languages she did not understand. "Daddy?" Emma called out. But her father was far away in the meeting hall on the other side of the station. Another explosion. The lights went out. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in an ugly red glow. Emma grabbed Sergeant Rascal and held him tight against her chest. Her heart was beating so fast it hurt. Creatures ran past her. Some were screaming. Some were crying. A large being with blue skin picked her up and started carrying her somewhere. But then another explosion knocked them both down. When Emma looked up, the blue creature was not moving anymore. Emma crawled behind a large plant in a pot. She made herself as small as possible and squeezed Sergeant Rascal so tight she thought she might break him. Then she heard them. Click, click, click. The sound of hard feet on metal floor. The sound of claws scraping against walls. The sound of voices that buzzed like angry wasps. The Velthari had boarded the station. Emma peeked around the plant and saw them. They were terrifying. Tall and covered in dark shells, they moved like shadows through the red emergency lights. Their eyes reflected the light like mirrors. Their claws dripped with something wet. One of them stopped near Emma's hiding spot. It tilted its head, its antennae twitching. Emma held her breath. She did not move. She did not blink. The creature moved on, but Emma's luck did not last. As she tried to crawl to a better hiding spot, a Velthari soldier spotted her. It made a horrible clicking sound and grabbed her arm. Emma screamed and kicked, but the creature was too strong. It lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. Small human, it buzzed. Soft, weak, but worth much. The soldier carried Emma through the ruined hallways of the station. She saw other children being carried too. There was a young Etherian boy, tall and thin with skin like moonlight. There were 2 Moldari girls, round and covered in soft brown fur. There was a Crethian child with scales and a long tail who was crying for its parents. They were all thrown into a shuttle. The doors closed. Emma felt the ship rise and move away from the station. Through a small window, she watched Harmony's Edge grow smaller and smaller. Somewhere on that station, her father was looking for her. Somewhere on that station, people were fighting and dying, and she was being taken away into the darkness of space. The other children were crying. The Etherian boy was shaking so hard his teeth were making sounds. The Moldari girls were holding each other and making sad little sounds. The Crethian child had stopped crying and just stared at nothing with empty eyes. Emma looked down at Sergeant Rascal. Her mother's voice came back to her, soft and warm like a blanket. "Do you know why I gave you a honey badger, Emma?" Her mother had asked 3 years ago, before she left on her last mission. Because honey badgers are the bravest animals in the whole world. They fight lions. They fight snakes. They never give up. And when you hold Sergeant Rascal, I want you to remember that you have that same brave heart inside you. Emma had not felt brave then. She did not feel brave now. But she remembered her mother's words. She remembered her mother's smile. And she made a decision. She would not cry. She would not give up. She would be like the honey badger. Back on Harmony's Edge, Ambassador David Park crawled through burning wreckage, calling his daughter's name. He was hurt. Blood ran down his face. But he did not stop. He reached a communication panel and sent a message to Earth. His voice was broken and desperate. "This is Ambassador David Park. My daughter has been taken. Please, someone help her. Please." The message traveled across the stars, past planets and moons, through the endless void of space. It reached Earth in seconds. It reached the headquarters of the United Terran Defense Force. It reached a woman with gray in her hair and fire in her eyes. And somewhere in the galaxy, the honey badgers began to stir. The message arrived at midnight, Earth time. Deep beneath a mountain in Colorado, screens lit up with red emergency alerts. Officers rushed to their stations. Generals were pulled from their beds. Within minutes, the most secret military base on Earth was fully awake. At the center of all this activity stood Colonel Grace. Kim. Grace was 47 years old. Her hair was starting to turn gray at the edges, and small lines had formed around her eyes from years of stress and too little sleep. But her back was straight, her voice was steady, and when she walked into a room, everyone stopped talking and paid attention. Grace had been a soldier for 25 years. She had fought in wars on 3 different planets. She had saved lives. She had taken lives. She had done things that kept her awake at night, and things that made her proud to be human. The galaxy knew her by her cow sign, Mama Bear. Her enemies called her something else. They called her the End. She listened to Ambassador Park's message 3 times. Each time, her face grew harder. When the message finished, she turned to her second in command. "Get me the Radal Division," she said. "All of them, now?" The Radal Division was not like other military units. They did not fight in large battles. They did not defend planets or patrol borders. They did one thing. They went into places where no one else could go, and they brought people home. The division was named after the honey badger, whose scientific name was Mellivora capensis, also called the Radal. It was a perfect name. Like the honey badger, the Radel division was small, fierce, and absolutely refused to lose. Within 1 hour, 4 soldiers stood before Colonel Kim in the briefing room. Lieutenant Brian Cho was the first. He was 32 years old, thin and quiet, with eyes that seemed to look right through people. His call sign was Ghost because he could move through any building, any ship, any fortress without making a sound. Enemies never heard him coming. Most of them never heard anything ever again. Next was Sergeant First Class Rachel Lee. She was the team's medic, but she was also a scientist who understood alien bodies as well as human ones. She could heal a wound or cause one with equal skill. Her call sign was Doc, but she had not taken the usual doctor's promise to do no harm. She had made a different promise, to protect her team, no matter what. Staff Sergeant Michael Yoon stood with his arms crossed, a small smile on his face. He was the team's explosives expert. He loved fire, loud noises, and creative destruction. His call sign was Boom, and he had earned it many times over. "Give me enough explosives," he liked to say, "and I can solve any problem." Finally, there was Corporal Jenny Han. She was the youngest, only 26. But she was already one of the best snipers in human history. Her call sign was Eyes because she could hit a target from distances that should have been impossible. She once made a shot through 2 walls and a closed door. The target never knew she existed. Colonel Kim showed them the message from Ambassador Park. She showed them pictures of the Valkyrie ships. She showed them the location where the slave ship was likely heading. A 7-year-old girl, Grace said. Human, along with several alien children, taken by Valkyrie slavers. The Galactic Council has been informed. And their response? Brian asked. Grace's jaw tightened. They refused to help. They said one human child is not worth starting a war with the Valkyrie Empire. Silence filled the room. It was a heavy silence, the kind that comes before a storm. They refused, Rachel repeated slowly. Cowards, Michael said. Jenny said nothing. She just checked her rifle. Grace nodded. I spoke with the council representative myself. A tall fellow, very polite, very concerned about political complications. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I told him we were not asking for permission. I told him we were informing him as a courtesy. Brian raised an eyebrow. How did he take that? Poorly. I believe his exact words were that humans were reckless and emotional and would bring disaster upon ourselves. Grace shrugged. He's probably right. But that little girl has a father who loves her, and she has people who will fight for her. That's what being human means. The team prepared quickly. They loaded weapons, checked armor, and gathered supplies. Within 3 hours, they were aboard their ship, a sleek black vessel called the Persistence. The name was another honey badger reference. Honey badgers did not stop. They did not quit. They persisted until the job was done, or they were dead dot as the Persistence left Earth's atmosphere. Grace sat in the command chair and studied the star maps. The Valkyrie ship had a head start, but the Persistence was fast. Very fast. If they pushed the engines hard, they could catch up in 2 days. Colonel, Brian said from his station, we're picking up Valkyrie patrol vessels along our route. At least 6 of them. Can we go around them? It would add a day to our travel time. Grace thought about the little girl, alone and scared on a slave ship. She thought about what the Valkyrie might do to her. She thought about the father who was waiting and praying for his daughter's return. We go through them, she decided. Michael grinned. I was hoping you'd say that. The first patrol vessel appeared on their screens 4 hours later. It was a small ship, designed for watching, not fighting. When it detected the Persistence, it sent out a warning message. Human vessel, you are entering Valkyrie space. Turn back immediately or face destruction. Grace leaned forward and pressed the communication button. Valkyrie vessel, this is Colonel Grace Kim of the United Terran Defense Force. You have something that belongs to us. A child. We are coming to get her. You can move out of our way, or you can find out why humans are feared across this galaxy. Choose. There was a long pause. Then the Valkyrie ship began charging its weapons. Grace sighed. They never choose the smart auction. She looked at Jenny. Eyes, weapons are yours. Jenny's fingers danced across her console. The Persistents had guns that could hit targets at extreme range, and Jenny controlled them like they were extensions of her own hands. 3 shots. 3 direct hits. The Valkyrie ship went dark, disabled but not destroyed. Leave them alive, Grace ordered. I want them to tell their friends what's coming. They encountered 5 more patrols over the next day. Each time, Grace offered them the same choice. Each time, they chose to fight. Each time, they lost. The Persistents cut through them like a knife through paper, leaving a trail of crippled ships floating in space. Word began to spread through the Valkyrie communication networks. Something was coming. Something human. Something that did not stop, did not negotiate, and did not show mercy. On the bridge of the consumption, High Claw Thresk received these reports with growing unease. He had taken many slaves over the years. Humans, aliens, it did not matter. No one ever came for them. No one ever fought for them. But these humans were different. These humans were chasing him across the stars. These humans were destroying his patrol ships like they were toys. For the first time in his life, High Claw Thresk felt something cold in his chest. He did not recognize the feeling at first because he had never felt it before. It was fear. And in the holding cell deep in his ship, a little girl held her stuffed honey badger and waited. She did not know that help was coming, but somewhere in her heart, she believed. Because her mother had told her that honey badgers never give up, and neither did humans. The holding cell on the consumption was cold and dark. Metal walls surrounded them on all sides. A single light hung from the ceiling, flickering every few minutes like a dying star. The floor was hard and uncomfortable, and the air smelled like rust and fear. Emma sat in the corner with Sergeant Rascal in her lap. Around her, the other children huddled in small groups. The Ethereum boy, whose name was Flicker, sat alone and shook without stopping. The 2 Moldari sisters, Pip and Dot, held each other and made soft crying sounds. The Crethian child, whose name Emma did not know yet, had curled into a ball and had not moved for hours. They had been on this ship for 1 day, or maybe 2 days. Emma could not tell because there were no windows and no clocks. Time moved strangely in space. Hours felt like years when you were scared. The Valkyrie guards came 3 times each day. They brought food that tasted like wet cardboard and water that smelled strange. They counted the children like they were counting boxes in a warehouse. They looked at them with their many eyes and clicked their mandibles and said things in their buzzing language that Emma could not understand. Emma watched them carefully. She watched how they moved. She watched which ones were bigger and which ones were smaller. She watched which doors they used and which buttons they pressed. She watched and learned, because watching and learning was better than sitting and crying. On the 2nd day, High Claw Thresk himself came to see the prisoners. He was the biggest Valkyrie Emma had ever seen. His shell was dark green, almost black, and covered with scars from old battles. His claws were longer than Emma's entire arm. When he walked, the floor seemed to shake. He stopped in front of each child and studied them with cold, calculating eyes. When he reached Flicker, the Etherean boy, he clicked his mandibles with approval. Etherean, he buzzed. Good eyes. Good reflexes. Will make a good servant for a wealthy master. Flicker whimpered and tried to move away, but there was nowhere to go. Thresk moved to the Moldari sisters. These 2, keep together. Moldari are useless when separated from family. Together they can work. Apart they just die. Pip and Dot held each other tighter and cried. Finally, Thresk stood in front of Emma. He bent down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like rotting meat. His eyes reflected her own face back at her, small and pale and frightened. "Human," he said. "The weakest species in the galaxy. No claws, no armor, no venom. Just soft skin and breakable bones." He poked her shoulder with one claw, not hard enough to cut, but hard enough to hurt. "This one will not sell for much. Maybe for experiments. Maybe for entertainment. Humans scream nicely, I have heard." Emma said nothing. She held Sergeant Rascal and looked straight into Thresk's many eyes without blinking. Thresk tilted his head. Strange. Most humans cry by now. This one just stares. He clicked his mandibles, which might have been laughter. Does not matter. Cry now or cry later, it makes no difference. You belong to me now, little human. You will belong to someone else soon. That is your future. Accept it. He stood up and walked away. The cell door closed behind him with a heavy sound. Emma stayed very still for a long time. Inside her chest, her heart was beating fast. Inside her mind, her mother's voice was speaking. Fear is just your body getting ready to fight, Emma. It means you are alive. It means you can still do something. Never let fear stop you. Let it push you forward. Emma took a deep breath. Then another. Then she stood up and walked over to Flicker. The Ethereum boy looked up at her with wide, wet eyes. He was shaking so badly that Emma could hear his teeth clicking together. "What is your name?" Emma asked. "Flicker," he managed to say. "I'm Emma. This is Sergeant Rascal." She held up her stuffed animal. "He's a honey badger." "Do you know what a honey badger is?" Flicker shook his head. "It's an animal from my planet," Emma said. She sat down next to him. "It's small like me, but it's very brave. It fights animals that are much bigger than it. Lions, snakes, even things with poison cannot hurt it. Do you know why? Why? Because the honey badger doesn't care. It doesn't care how big you are or how strong you are. It just keeps fighting until it wins." Flicker stared at her. The shaking slowed down a little bit. Emma held out Sergeant Rascal. "You can hold him if you want. He helps when you're scared." With trembling hands, Flicker took the stuffed animal. He held it against his chest and closed his eyes. After a few minutes, the shaking stopped almost completely. Emma stood up again. She walked over to Pip and Dot, the Moldari sisters. She told them about honey badgers too. She let them touch Sergeant Rascal's soft fur. She taught them to take deep breaths when they felt like crying. She went to the Crethian child, who finally told her his name was Scale. He was only 5 years old. Emma sat with him for a long time, telling him stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains and animals and sunshine. She told him that people were coming to save them. She did not know if it was true, but she said it anyway because Scale needed to hear it. On the third day, one of the guards hit Flicker. The Etherean boy had asked for more water. He was thirsty, so thirsty that his moonlight skin was starting to turn gray. He asked politely, using the trade language that most species understood. But the guard was annoyed, and Velthary did not like being bothered by slaves. The guard hit Flicker hard across the face. The boy fell to the ground, crying out in pain. The other children screamed. Emma did not scream. Emma moved. She jumped between Flicker and the guard. She spread her arms wide, making herself as big as she could, which was not very big at all. "Leave him alone," she said. The guard made a clicking sound that might have been surprise or amusement. "Move, little human." "No." The guard shoved her. Emma fell hard, her elbow hitting the metal floor with a painful crack. But she got up. She got right back up and stood in front of Flicker again. "Leave him alone," she repeated. The guard shoved her again. Harder this time. Emma fell, her back slamming against the wall. Pain shot through her body. But she got up. She always got up. The guard stared at her. In its many eyes, Emma saw something change. It was not respect. Valkyrie did not respect soft-skinned creatures. It was something else. Confusion, maybe. Or unease. This tiny human would not stay down. This tiny human kept getting back up. It did not make sense. "Crazy creature," the guard buzzed. It backed away toward the door. Not worth the trouble? It left, and the door closed, and it did not come back for a long time. Emma's body hurt everywhere. Her elbow was probably bruised. Her back ached. But she smiled. Flicker looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "You stood up to it. You fell down, and you got back up." "That's what honey badgers do," Emma said. "We get back up?" From that moment on, the other children looked at Emma differently. They called her Little Radel. They followed her lead. When the guards came, they stood together instead of cowering alone. When one child cried, the others comforted them. When one child was scared, they shared the fear and made it smaller. Emma did not know that help was coming. She did not know that 5 humans in a black ship were hunting through space to find her. She did not know that the galaxy was about to learn why humans were feared. But she knew one thing. She was not helpless. She had never been helpless. She had her mother's words, her father's love, and a stuffed honey badger named Sergeant Rascal, and honey badgers never gave up. The Velthrix Nebula was a cloud of purple and blue gas that stretched across 1,000,000 miles of space. Stars glowed inside it like distant candles. Ships that entered the nebula often got lost because the gas interfered with navigation systems. It was a dangerous place, and most pilots avoided it. The consumption flew straight into its heart. Highclaw Thresk had chosen this route on purpose. The nebula would hide his ship from anyone trying to follow him. By the time they reached the other side, they would be in Valkyrie space, where no human would dare to come. The slaves would be sold, the money would be counted, and the strange reports about humans destroying patrol ships would become someone else's problem. But Thresk was wrong. Someone had dared to come. The persistence cut through the nebula like a shark through dark water. Colonel Grace Kim sat in her command chair, her eyes fixed on the screens in front of her. The nebula was playing tricks with their sensors, but Rachel had found a way to track the consumption using its engine heat. The slave ship was close now. Very close. "Contact in 15 minutes, Brian reported from his station. "They don't know we're here yet." Grace nodded. "Good. Let's keep it that way. Brian, you know what to do." Brian Cho smiled his quiet smile. "I'll be invisible." The plan was simple, the way the best plans always were. Brian would board the ship first, alone and silent, and disable their alarm systems. Then the rest of the team would breach and clear. Every enemy would be eliminated. Every child would be saved. The consumption would become a floating tomb dot as the persistence matched speed with the slave ship. Brian moved to the airlock. He wore a lightweight armor painted in colors that changed to match his surroundings. He carried no loud weapons, only a knife and a small pistol with a silencer. Loud weapons made noise. Noise attracted attention. Brian did not like attention. The airlock opened, and Brian jumped across the gap between ships. He caught the hull of the consumption and attached himself with magnetic gloves. Then he began to climb, looking for a maintenance hatch that he could use to enter. The ship was bigger than it looked from outside. It had multiple levels, dozens of rooms, and at least 50 Valkyrie crew members. Any other soldier would have been afraid. Brian felt nothing except focus. This was what he did. This was who he was. Ghost was not just a call sign. It was a description. He found a hatch and opened it without making a sound. He slipped inside and disappeared into the shadows. The Valkyrie never knew he was there. Brian moved through the ship like smoke through air. He passed guards who never saw him. He walked through rooms where crew members ate and talked and laughed, and not one of them noticed a human sliding past them in the darkness. He found the alarm control room and disabled every alert system with quick, precise movements. He found the communication array and planted a device that would block any calls for help. Then he sent a single word back to the Persistence. Ready. Grace stood up. Michael, prepare the breach. Rachel, get your medical kit. Jenny, you're with me. Michael Yoon grinned and picked up his bag of explosives. This is my favorite part. The Persistence moved closer to the consumption until the two ships were almost touching. Michael attached shaped charges to the slave ship's hull at 3 different points. These were not regular explosives. These were Michael's special creations, designed to blow holes in walls without damaging anything on the other side. He had spent years perfecting them. Charges set, he said. Ready when you are, Colonel. Grace checked her rifle one last time. It was a big weapon, designed for close combat, capable of punching through Valkyriana like it was paper. All units, this is Mama Bear. We going hard and fast. Priority 1 is the children. Priority 2 is eliminating all hostiles. No survivors. No witnesses. No mercy. Am I clear? Clear, came 3 voices at once. Blow it. Michael pressed the button. 3 explosions ripped through the consumption. They were not loud enough to alert the whole ship, but they were loud enough to open 3 perfect holes in the hull. Air began rushing out, but the holes were small, and the ship's emergency systems quickly sealed the breaches with energy barriers. By then, the humans were already inside. Grace led the way through the first breach point. A Valkyrie guard saw her and raised its weapon. Grace shot it twice in the chest before it could fire. Another guard came running. Jenny dropped it with a single shot through the head. Move, Grace ordered. Fast. They swept through the ship like a storm. Brian had done his job perfectly. No alarms sounded. No reinforcements came. The Valkyrie crew died in confusion, never understanding what was happening, never knowing who was killing them. Rachel peeled off toward the medical bay. There might be injured children there. There might be children who had been sold already and were waiting for transport. She would find them all. Michael headed for the engine room. If things went wrong, he would blow the whole ship. But first, he had some guards to deal with. The guards in the engine room heard him coming and prepared to fight. They should have prepared to die. Grace and Jenny pushed toward the holding cells. This was where the children would be. This was where Emma would be. They encountered heavy resistance near the cells. The Valkyrie had placed their best fighters here because they knew the slaves were valuable. 8 guards stood in the hallway, armed and ready. 8 hostiles, Jenny said calmly. I count 4 on the left, 4 on the right. Take the ones on the right, Grace said. I've got the left. Jenny raised her rifle. In 3 seconds, she fired 4 times. Each shot hit a different target. Each target fell and did not get up. Grace moved forward, her rifle blazing. The remaining guards tried to fight back, but they were too slow, too surprised, too outmatched. Valkyrie were strong. Valkyrie were tough. But humans had been fighting wars since before they left their home planet. Humans had turned violence into an art form. The hallway fell silent. 8 guards lay on the floor, none of them moving. Grace reached the cell door and looked at the lock. It was a complicated system designed to keep prisoners in. She did not have time to crack it. Michael, she said into her radio. I need a door opened. On my way. Highclaw Thresk was in his quarters when he realized something was wrong. The lights flickered. The ship shook, and then his guards stopped answering his calls. He grabbed his weapon and ran toward the holding cells. His slaves were worth a fortune. He would not lose them to whatever was attacking his ship. He arrived just as a small human was placing something on the cell door. Behind the human stood two more, both female, both armed with weapons that looked too big for their soft bodies. "Step away from that door," Thresk commanded. "I have 50 warriors on this ship. You cannot win." The human at the door turned and grinned. 50? There were 50. Now there are. He paused to count on his fingers. None. There are none. Thresk felt that cold feeling again. Fear. Real fear. Impossible. The door exploded inward. Through the smoke, Thresk saw his prisoners. And standing in front of them, holding a strange stuffed creature, was the small human girl. She looked at him. Her eyes were hard and calm and completely without fear. "You should run," she said. Thresk raised his weapon. He would kill this child. He would kill all these humans. He would. The wall beside him exploded. Colonel Grace Kim stepped through the hole, her armor smoking, her rifle raised. "She wasn't talking to you," Grace said. Her voice was cold and flat and terrible. "She was warning you about me." Thresk understood, finally, why humans were feared. Not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because of the look in their eyes when someone threatened their children died. It was the last thing he understood. Highclaw Thresk was not a coward. He had fought in many battles. He had killed enemies larger and stronger than himself. He had risen to command through strength and cunning, an absolute refusal to show weakness. But as he faced Colonel Grace Kim, he felt something he had never felt before, the certain knowledge that he was about to die. Still, he would not go down without a fight. He was Valtteri. He had natural armor covering his body. He had claws that could cut through metal. He had venom in his fangs that could paralyze a creature twice his size. And this human woman was old and small and soft. He attacked. Grace sidestepped his first strike. She moved like water, flowing around his claws instead of trying to block them. His second strike caught only air. His third strike went wide as she ducked under his arm. Then she hit him dead. It was not a big movement. Just a short punch to a spot between his chest plates where the armor was thin. But the force behind it was incredible. Thresk felt something crack inside him. He staggered backward, shocked and hurt. "You," he gasped. "How?" Grace did not answer. She hit him again, and again. Each strike found a weak spot in his armor. Each strike caused damage. She was reading his body like a book, finding every vulnerability, exploiting every gap. Thresk tried to fight back, but she was too fast. Every time he swung at her, she was already somewhere else. Every time he tried to grab her, she slipped away. His venom was useless because he could not get close enough to bite her. His claws were useless because she would not stay still. The fight lasted 11 seconds. Thresk spent 9 of them realizing that everything he believed about humans was wrong. Grace's final blow crushed something important inside his chest. Thresk fell to his knees, green blood dripping from his mouth. He looked up at the human woman with something like wonder. "We are stronger," he whispered. "Faster. Better armored. How did you?" Grace stood over him. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no hatred, not even satisfaction. Just cold, professional focus. "You made a mistake," she said. "A lot of species make the same mistake. You looked at humans and saw soft skin. You saw no claws, no fangs, no armor. You thought that made us weak." She knelt down to look him in his dying eyes. "But we did not evolve claws because we learned to make weapons that are better than claws. We did not evolve armor because we learned to make armor that is better than scales. We did not evolve venom because we learned to make poisons that are stronger than any venom. We took everything evolution gave to other species, and we made better versions of it. Thresk coughed blood. What? Are you? We are persistence hunters, Grace said. That is how our ancestors hunted on our homeworld. We did not need to be faster than our prey. We just needed to keep going. We followed animals for days, never stopping, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We are the species that does not give up. We are the species that does not stop. We are the species that, when you hurt our children, will chase you across the galaxy and end you. Thresk's many eyes began to dim. Monster, he breathed. No, Grace said. Just human. Thresk died on the floor of his own ship, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. The Radal Division had taken the consumption in less than 20 minutes. Not a single human was injured. Not a single hostage was harmed. Grace stood up and turned to the cell. The children were staring at her with wide eyes. The alien children looked terrified, which was understandable. They had just watched a tiny human woman kill the most feared slaver in the sector with her bare hands. But Emma was smiling. I knew you'd come, she said. Grace walked into the cell and knelt in front of her. Up close, she could see how tired Emma was. She could see the bruises on her arms and the shadows under her eyes. This little girl had been through things that would have broken most adults. But her spirit was still strong. You must be Emma, Grace said. Yes, this is Sergeant Rascal. Emma held up her stuffed honey badger. He kept me brave. Grace smiled, and for the first time since the mission began, some warmth came into her face. I know about Sergeant Rascal. Your dad told us. He also told us about you. He said you were the bravest person he knew. I wasn't brave, Emma said. I was scared the whole time. I was scared the whole time. That's what bravery is. Being scared and doing the hard thing anyway. Grace reached out and gently touched Emma's cheek. You kept these other kids together. You gave them hope. You stood up to the guards when they tried to hurt your friends. That makes you a Radal too. Rachel came through the door, her medical kit in hand. Colonel, all hostiles eliminated. The ship is ours. She saw the children and immediately went to work, checking them for injuries, giving them water and food, speaking to them in soft, calming tones. Brian and Jenny appeared next, then Michael. They moved the children out of the cell and toward the persistence. The alien children were still scared, but they followed Emma because Emma had led them through the darkness and they trusted her. The trip back to Harmony's Edge took 3 days. During that time, the children ate good food and slept in warm beds and slowly began to heal. Emma spent hours talking with Grace, learning about the Radal Division and their missions. She told Grace about her mother and about the things her mother had taught her. Your mom was a soldier too, Grace said when Emma finished. She died protecting a colony ship full of families. She saved over 1,000 people that day. I know, Emma said. That's why I couldn't give up. Because she never gave up. When the Persistence docked at Harmony's Edge, Ambassador David Park was waiting. He had been waiting for days, refusing to sleep, refusing to eat, refusing to do anything except stand at the docking port and wait for his daughter. The door opened. Emma ran out. David caught her in his arms and held her so tight it seemed like he would never let go. He was crying. She was crying. Even some of the Radal Division members had to look away and pretend they had something in their eyes. I'm sorry, Daddy, Emma whispered. I'm sorry, I wandered off. I'm sorry. No, David said. Don't be sorry. You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters. That's everything. The footage of the rescue spread across the galaxy within days. Someone, perhaps accidentally, perhaps on purpose, leaked the recordings from the consumption security cameras. The galaxy watched humans breach a slave ship. They watched humans cut through Velthari guards like they were nothing. They watched Colonel Grace Kimkill, High Claw, Thresk in single combat. But the footage that people shared the most was different. It was the footage of Emma Park standing up to a guard twice her size. It was the footage of her getting knocked down and getting back up, again and again and again. It was the footage of a 7-year-old human girl showing the galaxy what her species was made of. The Velthari Empire quietly ended its slave trading operations. Within a month, the slave markets on the Outer Rim closed their doors. Ships that had once hunted for prisoners now stayed in port, their crews suddenly finding other jobs. No one said it was because of the humans, but everyone knew. 3 months later, Emma and her father attended a Galactic Council meeting. A delegate from a nervous species raised his hand and asked the human ambassador a question. Why do your people name your most elite warriors after such a small creature? The honey badger is tiny compared to other predators. It seems like an odd choice. David Park looked at his daughter. Emma was sitting next to him, holding Sergeant Rascal, looking more grown-up than any 7-year-old should. He smiled. Because the honey badger doesn't care how big you are, he said. It doesn't care how strong you are. It doesn't care about your armor or your claws or your poison. It only knows one thing. What's that? David put his arm around Emma. It doesn't lose. The delegate nodded slowly. Around the chamber, hundreds of alien eyes looked at the two humans with new understanding. Perhaps a little fear, but also perhaps a little respect, because they finally understood. Humans were not dangerous because of their weapons or their ships or their technology. Humans were dangerous because of something inside them. A fire that never went out. A spirit that never broke. A stubbornness that would chase you across the stars and never, ever stop. On the way home, Emma looked up at her father. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart? Can I be a Radel when I grow up? David laughed. Honey, you already are. Emma smiled and hugged Sergeant Rascal close. Outside the window, the stars stretched on forever, full of danger and wonder and possibility. Somewhere out there, someone might make the mistake of hurting innocent children again. And when they did, the honey badgers would come. They always did.